Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you're located. Welcome to the Q2 Partner Event. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to make sure all of you can see my slides. Please, if there's somebody who can't hear or see our slides, please put a note into the Q&A section, and we'll check that just to make sure we're good to go. Okay, so starting our presentation with a couple of key slides here. One is some of the information that we're sharing with you today could very well be confidential, so we ask that you handle that or this information appropriately. And also, we may share some forward-thinking, directional type of information or themes with you, and we would ask that you please not take that information or basically base buying decisions on that particular information. So some things we just try to share with you to get feedback, that type of thing. No commitment. So with that, our agenda has changed from what many of you probably saw on the invite when we sent that out. And that's because there's a lot of new information. And so in the last week or so, we got together and said, we better change things up as a way to provide what we thought was really the best and most valuable information to you this quarter. So I'm going to start with a couple of quick announcements, then be joined by Mark Walker, who is going to talk about navigating some of the TIBCO support and other systems. We have some new customer success resources we're going to share. Todd Bailey's going to handle several very exciting product announcements. And then Nate is going to share some of the new capabilities of our REST connector. So still a great agenda. As far as the announcements, most of you may know that Janaea Devan is at home because she's on maternity leave. She is taking care of her new son, actually. And I know Janaea reached out to a number of you, but just want to remind you that Ian Gov is filling in for Janaea and doing a great job with that. His contact information is on this slide, and he's on the call too. So at the end, if you do have questions, feel free to post those questions, even if it's something specific for Ian. We, for those of you that are attending Inspire or Northeast Dreamin', we will see you there. We are exhibiting at both, and we're a sponsor at Northeast Dreamin'. So make sure you come by and visit a TIBCO representative to ask for any questions or just to introduce yourself. And then the last announcement that I want to make that's a pretty significant one is the one that is about scribesoft.com, which is being retired at the end of this month. The links that you have stored should all be redirected. There has been a team of people putting a lot of work into making sure that the links are redirected. However, there's a chance if for some reason you have an old link or something that it may get missed. And then you can go to the TIBCO site and do searching or reach out to one of your TIBCO representatives to help you with it. The two exceptions to this are the help and the dev portal. So those are not moving, so those links will stay as is. All others, again, you should be redirected, but just know that when you do get redirected, you will now be on the tibco.com site. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Mark Walker, who is going to take us through some key information, again, around TIBCO support and systems. So, Mark?
Great. Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, so I think the last update I gave was about 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, was leading up to the time when we were going to, or planning our data migration from our support system into TIBCO's several systems. And so what I wanted, we've had about 3 months of runtime in the new systems, and I've collected some feedback from people around some of the areas where there's some friction. So some of this might be repeat for some of you, but some of it might also be helpful information to help you navigate these new systems. Because if you don't recall, or if you're new to this information, things in our old system were all collected into one user interface for the community and user discussions and for support and knowledge base, and those have been separated into several different TIBCO systems. So I want to help you understand how you get around in those things. So first of all, we'll start with the support portal. So I have the URL up there in the upper left at TIBCO.com, and that'll get access to support cases, to knowledge articles. One other thing I want to point out is that the third item I have here listed is that it does search, that search bar you see on the screen does search not only things that are on this site, but it will search things that are in the community and also search documentation. I do want to point that out to you. If you don't have a login to create support cases yet, it's pretty simple to do. I've got it highlighted here in the upper right. You just click on the register button. And once you do that, you're presented with these two options. You want to use the one on the left that says register to create cases. If you do the one on the right, you'll have access to the site, but you won't be able to create cases. So make sure you do that one on the left. And then there's some people, excuse me, in the corporate office that are responsible for vetting those requests and making sure that you're a valid partner, or in some cases, a lot of cases, it's a customer. And then you get an email back confirming you have access, and then you can get yourself logged in. When you want to look at cases, it's pretty straightforward. You just click on that cases button. Creating a case, I have a couple of tips for you about the best way to do that. And I'm going to talk about the way it works right now. There are some of the things in this process that may change in the future. So I don't want to talk about that. I just want to talk about how it's going to work today. There is a box at the top here that asks you for the customer account. We don't have all of the connections made in the database between, well, they are there, but they're not usable on the support site, between partners and the customers that are responsible, that are related to those partners. So you won't be able to get a drop-down list in here right now. That's something that's going to be coming in the future. So if you need to tell us who the customer is, and we always appreciate having that information, please just put it into the description of the case, and then we'll treat that accordingly. For the product area or the product, you definitely want to either select TIBCO Scribe Insight or TIBCO Scribe Online. That's very important to do because if you didn't know, TIBCO has many products. They have, I think it's 36 or 37 product families and over 400 products. And so there's multiple different product support groups within the support organization, which numbers around 300 people in total. So we want to make sure that your case gets routed to the group that knows how to do support on Scribe products. So if you pick one of those two products that I've listed on the right over here, it will get right into our queue right away. Just make sure that you're doing that when you create your case. A couple of the tips for you is that further down on that case entry form, there's a big field that's called the email CC list. And what you can do there is you can input a comma-separated list of email addresses of all the people that you want to get involved in the case. So that can include other people from your company, your partner organization, or it can include the people responsible for the product or for this particular issue that work at the customer. So you just put that list in there, and then once you submit the case, you don't have to go back to the portal to log in to do case updates. You can do your case updates through email. And because you did that CC list earlier, those people will get the subsequent updates that are either provided by you or other people in list or by your Scribe support engineer. One other big tip I want to give you, some people have had problems with this, is that Internet Explorer is not supported. Not everything is broken, but there are certain things that you can't do. Some of the drop-down lists don't work properly with IE. So don't try using IE with this support site. You want to use either Firefox or Chrome, or if you're on a Mac, you could even try Safari. That works pretty well. We've heard some comments from people about frustration around not being able to contact Scribe people directly by phone the way you used to, and we understand that that's true. What the company wants to do is they want to have all of the phone calls get routed through what's called the Technical Assistance Center, or TAC for short. That is effectively a call center that is there for TIBCO customers and partners when somebody needs help, and they can handle all manner of things. That's the group that can help you get your account set up so that you can log in or do product downloads or those types of things, and they can also handle escalations. So I wanted to cover that escalation use case. So if you have a case that's really important, whether it's a brand new case and you want to bring attention to it, or whether it's something that we've been working on a while, but now it really needs to be elevated in our priority list so you get immediate attention, the best thing that you can do is to, if it's a brand new case, the best thing to do is still create the case through the support site. So we have all the information and the case gets routed to us quickly, but then also follow up by calling the Technical Assistance Center. So I've listed here the 3 phone numbers that are for the different regions and there are people all over the world in different countries, but they're kind of organized in these 3 main regions. So call the one that's appropriate for the time zone that you're in. And that person will walk you through the process. They'll ask you a few questions just to kind of validate who you are and what's going on and get the essential information. So answer their questions. Make sure you tell them it's about Scribe support. If you've already created that case, have your case number handy. That'll be helpful. And then what happens is that person who from the TAC will initiate an alerting sequence. So if you're not familiar with a program or a service called Opsgenie, that's what we use operationally to do escalations for DevOps and also for tech support. So the TAC representative, once they get off the phone with you, will initiate an alerting sequence in Opsgenie, and we have support managers and support engineers in all the different regions that are on that Opsgenie rotation. And so if you escalate a case, something comes to a responsible person, it comes on our phones, it comes in email, we get text messages, so everything lights up so we know it's important. And then that person's responsibility is to make sure that that case escalation gets handled. So if it's a new case, we evaluate it, we make sure it gets assigned to the right person with the right skills, or if it's an existing case, we make sure that we've got somebody who can do a response and get back to you. And if you want a phone call, you can certainly put that request in to the person you talk to in TAC, and they'll let us know that you need a phone call back, or if you want a web meeting or something like that. Just let us know what your intentions are and what the urgency is, and then, like I said, one of the managers and support engineers get alerted, and we'll make sure it gets taken care of. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is the knowledge base. And the knowledge base is located on the same site as the support site. One thing I pointed out before is that the search bar here will search multiple things. It will search cases, the knowledge base, the documentation site, and the community. So if you want to focus in strictly on the knowledge articles, the ones that you might be familiar with that were in the old Scribe site, just make sure you click that knowledge base button to zero in on that. And then furthermore, click on the articles button that's right here, right? Because again, that search bar is going to search everything. So once you click on articles, what that does is that will change the screen. On the left-hand side, you will see a product suite selector. And if you don't see TIBCO Scribe in the list, and you probably won't because the list is sorted by, in descending order by the topics or the products that have the most activity. So you want to use the search that's right here and just type in TIBCO Scribe, and that will pop up that select checkbox, then check that. And now you'll be searching when you use the search bar just on the Scribe related products. Furthermore, if you wanted to, you could check the TIBCO Scribe Online or the TIBCO Scribe Insight box down below to zero in one of those 2 products. We heard quite a few complaints of frustration when we first migrated our data. We did bring over all the knowledge articles from our old system into this system, but they were by a requirement that we had to abide by. They were all brought over in draft mode, so they weren't available for anybody to use. So the support team and the tech writer have been going through the last couple of months that backlog of 900 or so articles. We deleted around 100 of them so far that were just not relevant anymore, so to get them out of the way. We've reviewed and published around 600 of them. So there is plenty of content there to use, and there's a remainder of about 200 that we've looked at, but they need a little more extensive work, and we couldn't get them quickly, so we've got to get those done. We know that. We've committed to trying to get that done by the end of the month. All right, so that's the story on the knowledge base. Oh, and then, again, this is where the search is. You can just use that search bar at the top. But because you've selected articles, that's all it's going to search through. All right, next, I'll talk a little bit about the community, and the URL for that's in the upper left. That's community.tibco.com. Community has multiple different types of content on it, including product information. It does have what is called answers. So think of that as the old discussion forums that you were used to using on the old Scribe site. And there's also a wiki, which has supplementary product documentation and other resources. I'm going to focus my content today, or my talk, around answers, which are the old discussions from the old Scribe site. And we did bring those over in the migration. If you want to focus in on them, make sure you click that answers link at the top. And then again, you have a product selector. In this case, you want to filter either by one of these words, TIBCO Scribe Insight, that's the product name, or TIBCO Cloud Integration, including Scribe. So the version of, or the edition of Scribe Online that you're used to now is available as a standalone version. At some point in the future, the only way to be using that product will be through TIBCO Cloud Integration. The short name for that is TCI. So that's why you have this branding on it, because that's what will be there in the future. So you want to make sure that you use that product selector. And if you don't see the product you're looking for, you can click Show More, and the Scribe related products will be somewhere near the top, because we did bring over a fair amount of discussions from the old system. Okay, and then go ahead and do your search. The last thing I want to talk about is the status page. So in Scribe terminology, that was called the trust site. And we've been operating that for several years. And that's where you could register to get alerts about upcoming product updates, or if there were any, what we'd call an incident, if there was an issue with a degradation or partial outage at the platform level for Scribe Online, we'd make those announcements and updates through the trust site. That trust site is being shut down tomorrow, which is June 21st. We sent a notification by email to all the people that were subscribed to that site about 2 weeks ago. So you should have gotten an announcement about that. If you didn't, you could go back and look for it, maybe check your spam filter. I'll just give you the short version here. We are not bringing over the users into the new site, so you are going to be required to subscribe to alerts from this new address, which is status.cloud.tibco.com, and it works very similar to the old Scribe Trust site. We're using the same vendor to provide the service. It's a little different look, and it organize it a little differently. And as you might know, again, TIBCO has multiple different products. So when you first subscribe, you're going to be subscribed to all of the different products. But I want to give you a little tip. Any email that you get from the site, including the first one that's your kind of like your verification or validation of your user account, has a link on it that says manage your subscription. It's down, I don't have a picture over here, but it's down towards the bottom of the email in like a gray text. If you click on that, you don't actually like have a login to the status page, but it will connect you with your account once you're registered. And from there, you can use this screen to select or deselect whichever TIBCO services or products, even at a granular level for the Scribe related ones. So you do have the option from any email that you get from the status page to subscribe or unsubscribe from particular TIBCO products or services. So I think it's an important tip for you to know about. The last page here for my presentation is just a few links. So we're going to make this presentation available after we've completed. And the first link here is an FAQ document that's about working on the support site. There's also a link for a wiki article about how to work with the community. So just some tips and tricks for people that are used to using Scribe sites and how to use those in the new TIBCO sites. And then the last one is a link to, it's more of like a marketing page for the services group, but it does include links to important information about support. There is a video tour of the support site that either you could use or refer it to a customer if they want some guidance. It does have the T's and C's of the terms and conditions of the maintenance agreement and the support guide and the service level agreements if you're looking for that sort of published legal information. All right, and that's it. I think, Lynn, we're going to be taking questions at the end of the presentation.
We are, but Mark, I'm gonna break the rule because somebody asked a question that I just thought would be really appropriate.
That's fine. Go ahead. What's the question?
And let me know if it would be too long to answer, and then we'll move along.
Well, that's always a danger with me.
Okay. So the question was, and it's really specific to Insight. They wanted to know what versions of Insight are still supported.
Okay. Well,
I'm going to share my screen while we're doing that.
Well, yeah, I don't have it off the top of my head. It's in the 7.9.3 range, I think, is what we support. Todd's confirming that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then, but one other thing for you is the version that you can download right now is 7.9.5. So we don't have support for, I guess say this right way, we do not have downloads for versions older than 7.9.5, but we do support versions 7.9.3, 7.9.4, 7.9.5. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, Mark, ended up touching on the TIBCO community, and it is, a resource that we are investing heavily in. Not only TIBCO as a company, but the TIBCO Scribe group as well. So there's two new resources that I really wanted to highlight. And as partners, I think there's two key benefits to this. One, you all can use it for sort of additional training of your own staff. You bring on somebody new, you need to get them up to speed on TIBCO Scribe online. You can certainly utilize these resources. And also, as you think about customers and when you have to transition them to be self-sufficient, these are great resources that you could just send the links and recommend that the customers utilize these as well. So first I want to highlight the workshops. So we launched these just last month. We had our first one take place in May. These are product or best practice topics. They are technical in nature. We do a live session that lasts 60 to 90 minutes in duration. And some of them that are most popular will probably get repeated throughout the year. But for right now, we at least do one per month, and we're changing up the topics. These are free. Afterwards, we take the recording and the resources and we post those. So if for some reason you can't join it live, you still have access to all of this great information. The May workshop was specifically on troubleshooting. And then we have our June workshop, which will be next week, June 27th, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, using variables with TIBCO Scribe. And you can register simply by sending an email to scribeconsulting@tibco.com, and we'll get you the information. I am, in the meantime here, going to actually show you what this site looks like. So this link is in the slides, which, as Mark said, will be sent out to you. In the community, you'll see the TIBCO Cloud workshops, and it's a little light at the moment where we just started this, but you will see the listing for all of the past workshops, and then you'll see at least one upcoming workshop listed here. And again, to register, this is very informal. You'd simply send an email to scribeconsulting@tibco.com. The other very exciting set of resources that we have launched is new customer orientation resources. And this is at the higher level. So these are TIBCO Cloud resources, TIBCO Cloud integration resources. So this first slide, and again, the link will send you here, this first landing page, I'm sorry, not slide, but landing page, is just welcomes you to TIBCO Cloud integration and is really focused on getting you started with an account in TIBCO Cloud integration. And this is going to be very important, and you'll know a lot more why that is after Todd speaks. But this is a great way to just go step by step to get your account set up. Once you do that, then you can very specifically go to TCI Connect, which is TIBCO Scribe Online, and we have a nice orientation for getting started with TCI Connect or TIBCO Scribe Online. There's a short video introduction, and then we have 2 levels of guides. So our goal here, the first one with the Quick Start Guide, is to get somebody sort of up and running in an hour. So give them a brief overview as far as the architecture and a tutorial that would allow them to be moving data within an hour. And then the extended guide is more of a get them to build maybe a lightweight integration in a day. So it's more of a day's worth of investment. Eventually, we plan the next step to be what you could do in a week, let's say. So again, these are great resources that we would recommend that you incorporate into your training for new staff members, or that you let your customers know about. We are also going to start to host in the July to August timeframe orientation sessions open to all customers and partners every month. So there will be notification that goes out every month that will be targeted to new customers, and we're just going to invite them to come for 30 minutes. We'll take them through these resources, get them started, and again, it's just a great extra item for you to know about. It'll go to your customers directly, but you could also let them know, And our goal is to make it easier for you to be able to transition to your customers to be somewhat more self-sufficient as you move on to new projects. Okay, and with that, I am going to turn it over to Todd.
Thanks, Len. That was good information. Let me oh, there we go. Let me share my screen, see if I can figure this out. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right. Love it when technology works. So, again, my name's Todd Bailey. I manage product for both TIBCO Cloud Integration and Scribe. So great to talk to you again. We've got some announcements that we've wanted to make you aware of. First, yesterday we deployed a new version of Scribe Online, or the Connect capability of TIBCO Cloud Integration. It allows you the ability to download Cloud Agent logs, which was one of the major requests that we've received in order to troubleshoot and figure out what's going on. So that has been long awaited, so that is released out there. We've got some other fixes that were incorporated into this, and I'll talk about the other portion of this release in a few slides, but there's a lot of stuff. I know it seems like there's one feature, but there's a lot of things that were incorporated into this, a lot of infrastructure areas that were hardened as a result of usage of the system, and just making sure that we've got the best quality system for you guys to use. A change that we've made, Mark talked about the trust site. We've also changed where we have our release announcements. So we'll provide this link to you, but this is where you can actually subscribe for the details on the releases. So the release notes, the trust site is always a good place to have those notices, but this gives you kind of from a product perspective what's in the release, what you should be interested in going forward. A number of changes with the changes of our various systems over to TIBCO. And then we've got a major release going out the door as we speak, both on TIBCO Cloud and TIBCO Cloud Integration. And I think this is what Lynn was alluding to when she was kind of building things up. So almost a year ago, TIBCO purchased ScribeSoft, which was awesome. We've had a number of changes as a part of that. And one of the things that they wanted to do is bring all of the Scribe customers over to TIBCO Cloud, and we said, well, there's a couple of parity things that you need to address before we do that. And so the teams on that side of the world have actually been hard working on getting that done, and they have accomplished it in kind of a great fashion. So the first thing we're going to introduce those that haven't been in TIBCO Cloud. If you had, you would have realized that there's you didn't have the org navigation that you have in Scribe Online. So as of today, there's a new navigation that is in the global navigation header that allows you to switch between organizations. So as a partner, as you're invited to multiple organizations, you can now make that transition very easily. The other thing that we've added is the idea that the account owners within TIBCO Cloud can create what's called child accounts. And a child org lives underneath a parent and participates in the subscription. And in some cases, it's used in the OEM model, but in other MSP cases, a managed service provider, it's used where you're managing various children underneath your own subscription. So we've added that new functionality there, and it also helps in other situations where you're trying to do the segregation of dev roles between dev, QA, and production. So you can use the child orgs for that. So a lot of flexibility that have been added to TIBCO Cloud. Parity, it goes beyond parity in some respects with what was offered with TIBCO or with Scribe Online, so we're pretty excited about that. Just to give you kind of another view of what this would look like and how you might use it, this gives the example of where you might have an organization and you might use the child organizations for your dev team and for your QA team. It's pretty easy to add new child organizations into your account. It's based on the subscription that you have, so whether you're on TIBCO Cloud Integration Standard or Hybrid, you'd have this functionality, but you simply have this this new setting here that is under your settings, and you just add child organization and just follow the steps. So pretty slick. Pretty proud of this. This includes Scribe. So as you create a new child organization, you would get another Scribe area as well. So that's another child or another piece of the child that is created. Now, from a licensing standpoint, it's still governed by the overall license of the parent. And if you have any questions on this, certainly we can set up time afterwards. We plan to have some future sessions to really go over what TIBCO Cloud Integration pricing looks like in order to get you guys transitioned over onto that side. Probably it's all exciting stuff, but there's another picture of how you would add that child in there. But one of the things that we announced last week at our user conference was that now we've got TIBCO Cloud Integration with the Scribe capability available in 100% Azure. So this was a huge undertaking to be able to deploy a separate area of Scribe in Azure and TIBCO Cloud Integration all integrated. And so this is available today in a public preview beta. We're hoping to be out of public preview beta within the next 3 months or less. This is part of one of the announcements that we're going to be talking about at Inspire. So anybody that is heading to the Inspire event in Vegas, you'll certainly see a lot of this. And we see a huge or a strong partnership between Microsoft and TIBCO going forward. We're dealing with one level down from Satya. So a lot of exciting things are in store for what we're doing with Microsoft. And it doesn't mean that we're backing away from AWS in any stretch of the imagination, but our mantra has always been we want to provide solutions in whatever clouds you want to work in, whether it be Azure, whether it be AWS, and we're going to be looking at adding additional cloud options in the future because we know people like choices. So I would encourage you, if you haven't signed up for a trial, definitely sign up for a trial of the Azure functionality. We've embedded some new guides for onboarding customers. Lynn was talking about the trial toolkit. We've embedded those into the experience also with Azure. So take a look at it. Love to get your reactions on it and any suggestions that you might have. That was the end of my product speak. I'm going to leave the last or the best for last and turn this over to Nate.
Thank you, Todd. I'm going to start sharing. All right. So a topic that I'm very passionate about is connectivity. So I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about what we've been doing with the REST Web Services connector. We actually just released this week into production. We've been in preview for a number of weeks. We've been in beta for even longer than that. But if you haven't worked with the REST connector, or maybe you've only heard of it for a little while, so basically what we're trying to do with this REST connector, and I think a lot of you, I noticed names on the calls, I think a lot of you have used Insight in the past, and there was a SOAP adapter. You could think of the REST connector like that, but for Scribe Online. So really what we're trying to do is lower the barrier to connectivity on the Scribe platform, and I'll give you a quick little overview of what that really means. But how we're doing that is we're using a specification. It's an industry standard for defining REST APIs. And so that's now called the Open API specification, but you might know about it as Swagger. And the whole key to this is that it's a no code, it's no development, it's not scripting. It's just a document that defines how to work with that API. And so that's been available for probably over a year now. The update's actually already available in the marketplace. To hop on one of Todd's comments, we have a release notes. It's in the community support here, and that'll walk you through all the new changes that I'm going to briefly overview right here anyways. So thinking about this as where does this REST connector fit in the connectivity stack? Customers will say, hey, how do you connect to XYZ? And so we'll think about, is that on a database? Can we connect to the database? Is it maybe a file import or export, a CSV or an XML? Is there a queue? Or maybe there's an API. And those first three logos there with the database and the file and the queue, think of those like a technology connector. Maybe it's an ODBC driver. Maybe it's OData. Maybe it's our text connector. And those are much more of a one-to-many connector because we can connect to so many different systems with those connectors than, say, a specific Microsoft Dynamics 365 connector. That's specific, that's an app, that's a API there. So what we're doing is we're saying, well, we have the technologies on the first three. What we want to do is create a technology for the last one on an API. So in the past, when we looked at connectivity approaches for this, we would think about, well, what's involved, right? Do I have to build a connector for this? Can I get something out of the box? And it really felt a little black and white, like I can either use ODBC and get a database, or I write a connector. Well, with Scribe, we have a number of, I'll just add them all up here. We have a number of what I call steps, and the steps are really about the first step. It's the easiest thing. It's the lowest floor. I'm going to get in, I'm going to start working with that API. Now, its ceiling is not so high, right? It's very easy to work with, but I'm configuring everything all along the way. So not super scalable, a little bit different to maintain. So if you've ever checked out our Scribe Labs connector, it's pretty neat. If you ever needed to post a tweet or get enrichment data or send another message to trigger a Scribe flow, it's really cool for that. It's really great for proof of concepts. And Scribe Labs is really just there for previewing new features and so we can add those to the product. But the next step that we have is this REST Web Services connector. And so that's, again, it's not leaving a web browser. It's no development. There's a lot of specifications out there already that are plug and play, and it's fairly easy to build your own. So let me get back to that. But the other two are for, it's a developer that needs to build it. It's Visual Studio. We've made developing connectors easier with our fast connector and fast messaging frameworks. And those are good for REST APIs. Those are good for most common authentications. It's fairly easy to use for a developer, fairly good feature capabilities. And then we also have our full connector development kit, what we use to build out our flagship connectors for. And again, there's ways that you can accelerate even that kind of connectivity, but that's really meant for multiple different users. You want to develop a connector once and reuse it for all different kinds of users. So really good in those OEM and MSP use cases where your users aren't using Scribe and you don't want to necessarily use Scribe for them. You like our lifecycle management. So going back to the REST connector, what we're doing is we're trying to move the capabilities and configuration away from a developer, away from being reliant on a developer, which isn't an issue at one time, but as you're trying to make changes and manage things over the course of the life cycle of integrations, it could become a barrier. So with the REST connector, what we like to call this is API-led. So having a Swagger specification that will document in an industry standard, not specific to TIBCO or Scribe or anyone else, how to work with an API. So if you were familiar with Insight, you would plug in a WSDL and the adapter would generate that connection. In Scribe Online, we have a Swagger specification and it creates your connection for you. The big difference is that the Swagger specifications are so much easier to work with. So what we've had this for about a year. That's a little bit of a preface. We've had this out for about a year. We've added a number of hot fixes, a number of just different fixed kind of capabilities along the way. And with this major release, we've upgraded everybody to include those hot fixes, as well as really the theme here was around getting connected to APIs easier. So I think the biggest feedback that we got about the connector is it's really tough for me to authenticate to XYZ API. The Swagger piece looks good, but I can't get connected. So what we thought about is your clients or maybe internal projects you're being asked to connect to things. What's that experience with the REST connector? What's that? How do I get to that really that hello world with Scribe where I test my first call and the data comes back? So we thought about things, so this was just added in this release. We thought about things like how do we connect with what I call the three-legged OAuth type, which is if you've ever used our HubSpot connector, if you've ever used GoToWebinar, it's where you're in Scribe to authenticate, You click authorize, it takes you to HubSpot, you log in, you accept, takes you to a redirect. That's a three-legged authorization, and we now support that generically, which is really awesome. So any of those, a lot of the SaaS apps, a lot of the B2C apps have this type of authentication because it's very secure per person. We can now support that. We also support the two-legged auth types, which is pretty cool. There's a number of out-of-the-box OAuth. We have some good documentation on this to help you guide you. Which is it client credentials, is it implicit, etc. One thing I'll add on these two, nobody's an OAuth wizard. Nobody knows how all these features are supposed to work. If you've ever used Postman, I think that's a great experience for testing things out. If you can authenticate in Postman, you'll be able to authenticate in Scribe. And if there was an issue with maybe how the way Postman and Scribe do it, because that's really just the specific standard, and you're working with an API that doesn't do it, well, we've also added the ability to customize those two-legged calls. So you can really build out the authorization inside of Scribe. You can actually go in there and paste in the URL, and you could paste in how do I get an access token, etc. So this is great for customizing an OAuth flow. We saw a number of those grant types that were a little bit customized by the provider, so we went into our custom configuration, and added that extra property. But if you needed JOT tokens, if you needed other types of tokens, this will also work for you as well. So really where this all comes down to is in that connection screen on that authorization tab, we had a number of options for you already. We've added a number more options for you, and each of those screens should have some pretty intuitive, fields in here for what you need to provide. If you ever didn't know what grant type to use, it's always pretty easy to look at Help Doc and search for, did they say grant equals password, grant equals client credentials, etc. The other thing that we thought about, all right, so you're connected. Great, I have a connection. I have my Swagger spec that's going to tell Scribe what are the options. The other things that we thought about was making those first API calls. So I know I'm connected, that feels good. Now I want to get a couple records back and make sure this thing is working end to end. So one of the things that I have actually a supporting slide for this, but one of the things that we added was that some of the APIs, and these are the better APIs, they have what they call content negotiation. So there's a header that's configured that says, hey, I'm going to send you application JSON. Or they might customize that. And so we want to allow our users to override the default and provide what that API specifically asks for. So one thing I do want to make clear is that we're still only supporting JSON as the payload type, but what APIs call that could be different. So I'll show you that in one moment. And the other thing that we wanted to add was really around errors and surfacing up that right information. So some APIs will give you good error details, and maybe that wasn't surfaced because we didn't know how to fit it into Scribe. So what we've done is we've given you everything. So if they come back with some crazy 500 server error with some XML or whatever, maybe it's HTML, we're going to give that to you as the user so you can really see what went on. So if we took a quick look at these for content headers, we've noticed a number of APIs, and this is exactly what I mean here. There's a header of content type. Now, normally you would put in application JSON. Our connector is still going to default to that, but you'll be able to override it if it's something kind of funny like this, or if they ask you to version it. So it's the same thing in Postman if you've ever used this or seen this. Usually Postman will automatically do that for you, but now you'll be able to override it in Scribe. So we'll give you a little kind of a virtual field here where you can provide that. And if, like anything, if I hovered over this little eye in your specification, we'll look and see what those might be because it's almost like a pick list. The other one on the error side is really around I want to get that end-to-end first call, and maybe my query didn't work. And it might not have worked because your setup was incorrect, or it might not have worked because I didn't run that call correctly. So thinking about that, what we've done is we've actually pulled up the bodies of the response. So this is an example of a query preview. We want to tell you right there in that message what went wrong. So this is 400 that's coming back, and this is telling me specifically nothing to geocode. This is some weather API. So we'll do that in query previews. We'll do that. This is a fatal error. If I went to the execution log, say I'm unauthorized, or this is a fatal error here. So we're going to bring back anything that comes back with that API and put it in there. So the other thing that we've added, and Todd mentioned this earlier, is that we can now request Cloud Agent logs. So we're also going to be putting this in the log file. So if you wanted to know, if you thought there might be more in there, if you wanted to see where that call was being made because it wasn't on a preview where you made it happen, it was in maybe a job being run, we have all that for you too. So now I can even look at my cloud agents. I can always look at my on-prem agents. I can grab this stuff very easily. So I think that was probably a quick run through, but we're actually going to be doing a webinar coming up July 10th. I'll get into the new UIs for the REST connector as we're creating connectivity. We'll go through a couple of examples, and we'll also talk about, how do I know which OAuth grant type it is, and how do I know if it's working? And then we'll go into the other couple features there as well. So I must have done a great job. I don't see any Q&A yet, but if you guys do have any questions, please join the webinar coming up. Please let us know. Please ask us on the community. And this is the REST connector. It's updated just this week. So please check it out. It's already in production. All right. Okay. So Nate, thank you very much. Let me just go back. We're really just rounding things out here. The one question that did come up some I've been able to, they're very specific, so I answered online. There was a question that I already asked of Mark. The other, another question that has come in, I think, Todd, it might be best for you to answer it, and it's regarding, it is a pricing related, but I think maybe it's a very contained pricing related question. It is somebody who saw that with the pricing for TCI that on-premise agents, there's now a charge for those. So could you just talk about that?
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, with TIBCO Cloud Integration, there is a charge for on-premise agents. It's $100 for the year. We did it for revenue recognition reasons, but it's a flat $100 per year in order to use the on-premise agent. There are things restricting a person from doing it. They can still install the agent, but there is a warning regarding the licensing on that. So we tried to not make it too bad by making $100, but we had to do it.
I have a follow-up on that. Can they install as many agents as they like?
They absolutely can. They absolutely can. It's per module is the way it's priced. So, once you purchase this, now if you're using what's called TIBCO CLI, which is the command line interface, you need to purchase that module, but you just purchase the Scribe Online on-premise agent.
So it's $100 per year, and you can do you can install as many on-premise agents as you like.
That is correct.
Okay.
Good question.
Great. The one thing I will address, because some questions came in just to make sure that we're really clear, Scribesoft.com is being retired at the end of the month, but the help and the dev portals will remain. So if you have links for those two, they will remain. But everything else will be redirected and should be located on TIBCO.com. Might be a slightly different format, but all of the same information should be on TIBCO.com.
All right, and there was a question that was asked or answered privately, but I thought I would answer verbally, if that's okay. It was about the help portal. The way I interpreted the written question was, we've talked about that we're using a new support portal and how much information was brought into that. So we brought over 2 years of case history from the old help site to the new help site. We didn't bring everything. We had, 6 or 7 years of history in the old site. We just brought over the 2 years of case history. We have access to the old cases. So on an individual request basis, if you had a question about an old case, our support team could go back and look at that. But we only brought over 2 years for your use on the new portal. Okay.
Okay, so this question, when does the scribesoft.com, that specifically the website getting migrated, there has not been a notification on that. There was notifications when the support systems were migrated over. There's notifications when the trust site has been, anybody that was subscribing to the trust site, those notifications went out 2 weeks ago. There has not been a specific notification, nor will there be on scribesoft.com. Because what our goal is that when you go to type it in, you'll be redirected and you'll find the information. It'll just be on TIBCO.com. Here. There's one more question. Where'd that go? There we go.
Well, Lynn, actually, there was one more. There was a question that came in earlier, right at the beginning, about the products that are supported. And the question I answered, the way I interpreted the question, was specifically about what versions of Insight.
Insight, correct.
But I think, when I'm reading the written question again, and it seems like it's deeper than that. It's like they're asking what products are supported in general. So the answer is that there's still what you used to know as Scribe Insight, which is now called TIBCO Scribe Insight. There is still Scribe Online. We'll call that standalone Scribe Online, the one that you log into through app.scribesoft.com. And there is now TIBCO Cloud Integration, which includes the Scribe Online capability. That's the TIBCO Cloud Integration Connect that Todd talked about. So there really are like 3 separate products that are supported: TIBCO Scribe Insight, standalone TIBCO Scribe Online, and TIBCO Cloud Integration, which includes Scribe Online capability. So I hope I've answered that person's question appropriately now.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, I think we're done. Wait a minute. Whoops, there might be one. Let's see. I thought one more came in there. Let's see. Nope, I think we're all set. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. There'll be a follow-up with the recording and the slides that should go out in the next 24 hours. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.